The Volanthi had ruled the stars for 300 years. Their ships were everywhere. Their armies had crushed 100 worlds. When they spoke, entire species knelt in fear. They believed they were gods, and for a long time, no one could prove them wrong. Then they found humanity. Earth was a small world on the edge of known space. The humans had only been traveling between stars for 2 centuries. They had a few colonies on nearby planets and moons. They traded with other species when they could. They fought small wars among themselves sometimes. To the Volanthi Dominion, they were nothing. Just another weak species to add to their collection. High Arbiter Catherine sent a simple message to Earth. Surrender. Become servants of the Dominion. Give up your ships, your weapons, and your freedom. In return, the Volanthi would let them live. The humans said no. Catherine was not angry. He was amused. He had heard this answer before from other species. They always said no at first. Then his fleets would arrive, and they would learn what the word no cost them. He sent the Ninth Annihilation Fleet to teach humanity its place. 2,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Each ship was a weapon of terrible power. The smallest of them could burn a city to ash in seconds. The largest could crack open a moon. Together, they were unstoppable. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the UTS Defiance and watched them come. Her ship was old. Her fleet was small. She had 47 vessels to defend all of humanity. Some were military ships. Others were cargo haulers with guns welded to their hulls. A few were bought from friendly aliens at prices that had nearly bankrupted Earth. Against 2,000 Volanthi warships, it was not enough. She knew this. Everyone knew this. But they would fight anyway. The battle lasted 11 days. On the first day, the Volanthi destroyed humanity's outer defenses. Mining stations and observation posts vanished in balls of fire. The humans fought back, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy shields. On the third day, Mars burned. The colony of 4 million people had nowhere to run. Tanaka sent ships to evacuate who they could, but the Volanthi were faster. They rained fire from orbit until the red planet turned black. On the 5th day, the stations around Jupiter fell. The moons of Saturn went silent. Europa, Titan, Ganymede all gone. Each loss was another wound in Tanaka's heart. Each death was another name she would carry forever. On the 8th day, Earth's orbital platforms were destroyed. The great rings of steel and glass that humanity had built over 100 years were torn apart in hours. Millions more died. The sky above Earth filled with falling debris, burning like terrible stars. By the 11th day, Tanaka had 17 ships left. 17 ships against nearly 2,000. Her crews were exhausted. Her ammunition was running low. Her hope was almost gone. She gathered her remaining fleet behind Earth's moon and prepared to die. 4 billion people waited on the planet below. They watched the news. They held their families. They prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Some prepared weapons, knowing they were useless. Others simply waited for the end. But across the galaxy, something else was happening. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin stood before the Concord Assembly. This was a gathering of 12 species, all of them powerful, all of them neutral in the war. They watched and traded and made deals. They did not fight the Volanthi. They did not help the Volanthi's victims. They simply observed. Chen was tired. She had not slept in 3 days. Her home was burning, and she was here, begging strangers for help they would never give. But she was not asking for their help. "I am not here to ask you to fight for us," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am here to ask for time." The assembly murmured. The Volanthi representative laughed openly. "Time for what?" he asked. "Time to watch your species die slowly instead of quickly?" Chen looked at him. Her eyes were cold and hard. 30 days, she said. Give us 30 days before you recognize Volanthi control of our system. That is all I ask. The assembly debated. The Volanthi protested. They wanted humanity crushed now, not later. But the other species were curious. What could the humans do in 30 days? What were they planning? In the end, they granted 14 days. Not 30, 14. The Volanthi representative smiled. It does not matter, he said. In 14 days, there will be nothing left of your kind. Chun nodded slowly. Then she smiled too. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. A terrible secret that would change everything. We will see, she said. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Tanaka received the news. 14 days. 2 weeks to save humanity, or watch it die. She looked at the sensor screens showing the enemy fleet. 2,000 ships waiting to end her world. Then she looked at a single message on her private display. A message from a place that did not officially exist. A message that contained only 3 words. Prometheus is ready. Tanaka closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something new in her gaze. Not hope exactly. Something harder. Something older. The look of a predator that had been pretending to be prey. All ships, she said quietly. Hold position. Do not engage. We wait. Her officers looked confused, but they obeyed. And in the darkness beyond Pluto, something vast began to wake. Pluto was cold and dark. It sat at the edge of the solar system, forgotten by most humans. No one lived there. No one visited. It was just a frozen rock in the endless night. At least, that is what everyone believed. Deep beneath the ice, past doors that had no names and guards who did not exist, there was a city. It had been built 80 years ago in absolute secrecy. No records existed. No satellites watched it. The thousands of people who worked there had said goodbye to their families and disappeared from the world forever. This was Project Prometheus. Director Amara Okonkwo walked through the final security checkpoint and stepped onto the observation platform. Below her, stretching for kilometers in every direction, was the greatest secret humanity had ever kept. It was a ship. No. Ship was too small a word. This was a monster. This was a god made of metal and fire. 4 kilometers long, covered in black armor that seemed to drink the light. Weapons lined its hull like the spines of some ancient beast. At its heart, held in chains of magnetic force, was a tiny black hole. A captured star that would power weapons beyond imagination. The UT's Prometheus. Humanity's last hope. Humanity's terrible answer to a hostile universe. Okonkwo had given 40 years of her life to this project. She had watched it grow from drawings on paper to the Leviathan before her. She had buried friends who died building it. She had sacrificed everything. Now, finally, it was time. How long until full power? She asked. The chief engineer stood beside her, his face lit by the glow of countless screens. 6 hours. The Singularity Core is stable. All weapons are online. The crew is boarding now. Okonkwo nodded. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. And the escort fleet? 32 Predator-class destroyers. All hidden in the outer system. All ready to move on your command. 32 ships. Each one built in secret, just like the Prometheus. Each one carrying weapons that broke every law the galaxy had ever written. Humanity had signed none of those treaties. Humanity had obeyed none of those rules. Humanity had smiled and traded and acted weak while building nightmares in the dark, because humanity remembered something the other species had forgotten. The universe was not safe. The universe was not kind. And those who could not defend themselves would be eaten by those who could. A hologram flickered to life beside Okonkwo. Admiral Tanaka's face appeared, tired but alert. "Director," Tanaka said, "the Volanthi have stopped their advance. They think we are beaten. They are preparing for a victory celebration." Okonkwo almost laughed. Almost. "They positioned their fleet for a parade," she said. "Not a battle." "Yes." "Then let us remind them why their ancestors feared the dark between stars." Tanaka's expression hardened. For 11 days, she had watched her people die. She had retreated and retreated and retreated. She had played the part of the desperate commander with no hope. Now the mask could come off. "Give the order, Director," she said. "OKONKW, look down at the Prometheus one last time." 80 years of work. Thousands of lives given to this moment. The hopes and dreams and rage of an entire species poured into one vessel. She pressed her hand against the cold glass of the observation window. "Prometheus," she whispered. "Rise." Across the solar system, something changed. On every human world, every ship, every station still surviving, emergency broadcasts activated. Screens lit up with a symbol of burning torch held in a human fist. And beneath it, 3 words that would echo through history. "Prometheus is rising." The survivors on Luna saw it. The refugees hiding in asteroid bases saw it. The soldiers on Tanaka's battered ship saw it. Even the civilians on Earth, huddled in shelters and waiting to die, saw it. For a moment, no one understood. Then the truth spread like fire. In hidden bases across the outer system, engines roared to life. 32 destroyers emerged from their hiding places and began racing toward the inner planets. They moved in perfect formation, silent and deadly. And behind them, something far larger began to move. The ice of Pluto cracked. Great sheets of frozen nitrogen split apart as the mountain above the secret base began to rise. Because it was not a mountain at all. It was a door. The Prometheus emerged from its tomb like a creature from ancient nightmares. Its engines burned with cold blue fire. Its hull was so black it seemed to cut a hole in the stars themselves. And it was vast. So vast that sensors across the system went crazy trying to measure it. The Volanthi detected it almost immediately. Their instruments screamed warnings. Their officers reported impossible readings. Arbiter Catherine demanded to know what was happening. No one could tell him, because nothing like this had ever existed. Nothing like this should have been possible. The humans were supposed to be weak. The humans were supposed to be primitive. The humans were supposed to be dying. Instead, they had built something that made the mightiest Volanthi battleship look like a toy. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the Prometheus pass overhead. Its shadow fell across her ship like night falling across a single leaf. She had known about this project for years. She had trained for this moment for decades, but seeing it with her own eyes was something else entirely. "All ships," she said softly, "prepare to follow. We will let the Prometheus lead. We will show them what humanity truly is." The exhausted crews of her fleet straightened. Hope returned to their eyes. The despair of 11 days began to fade. They were not dying today. They were hunting. The Prometheus accelerated toward the inner system, toward Earth, toward the enemy fleet that had thought itself invincible. And in its wake, the very stars seemed to tremble. Arbiter Catherine was drinking wine when his world ended. He sat in his private chambers aboard the flagship Eternal Victory. Through the great windows, he could see Earth hanging in space blue and green and helpless. Tomorrow, his fleet would finish the job. Tomorrow, humanity would kneel or die. Tonight, he celebrated. His cup was halfway to his lips when the alarms began. At first, he ignored them. What could possibly threaten 2,000 Volanthi warships? But the alarms grew louder. Officers began shouting. Someone was screaming about impossible readings. Catherine walked to the command deck, annoyed at the interruption. His tactical officer was staring at a screen, his face pale with terror. "What is it?" Catherine demanded. The officer could not speak. He simply pointed at the display. Something was coming. Something was bending space itself as it approached. The gravity readings were insane. It was as if a small moon had suddenly appeared at the edge of the system and was racing toward them at impossible speed. "Show me," Catherine ordered. The main screen flickered. Sensors struggled to focus. Then, finally, an image appeared. Catherine dropped his wine glass. It shattered on the floor, but he did not notice that the thing emerging from the darkness was a ship. It had to be a ship, but it was so massive that his mind refused to accept it. His flagship, the greatest vessel in the Volante Navy, was 1 kilometer long. This thing was 4 times that size. Its hull was black as the void between galaxies. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in burning gold human symbols, he realized. The writing of the species he had come to destroy, and it was heading straight for his fleet. "All ships," Catherine shouted. "Battle formation, now!" Across the Volante fleet, thousands of officers scrambled to obey. 2,000 warships turned to face this impossible enemy. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. In any normal battle, this firepower could have shattered a planet. Then the human ship spoke. The message came on all frequencies. Every Volante vessel heard it. Every speaker on every ship carried the same calm, quiet voice. "This is the United Terran ship Prometheus to all Volante forces." The voice belonged to Admiral Yuki Tanaka, the same admiral they had been hunting for 11 days. The same commander they believed was broken and beaten. "You have 14 hours to withdraw from human space. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is simply what will happen." Catherine's hands clenched into fists. How dare she? How dare this human speak to him like he was nothing? She should be begging for mercy, not giving orders. Any vessel remaining after this deadline will be removed. The message ended. For a moment, silence filled the Volante flagship. Then Catherine laughed. He laughed long and loud, and his officers began to laugh with him. "1 ship," he said. "They send 1 ship against 2,000. Are the humans mad?" He strode to his command throne and sat down. His eyes burned with fury and wounded pride. "All ships fire. Show them what Volante power means." 1,700 warships opened fire at once. Beams of energy, missiles, plasma bolts, everything the Volante had was hurled at the Prometheus. The barrage was so intense, it lit up the space between the fleets. Like a second sun, every shot hit its target, and nothing happened. The weapons struck the black hull and simply vanished, absorbed, eaten. The Prometheus did not slow down. It did not try to dodge. It flew straight through the storm of destruction, as if it were flying through gentle rain. Catherine stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Impossible." But the impossible was just beginning. The Prometheus kept absorbing fire, and with each hit, it began to glow. Faint at first, then brighter. The ship was not being damaged, it was being fed. It was turning their own attacks into power. Then it fired back. A single beam of light lanced out from the front of the human vessel. It moved too fast for sensors to track. It struck the eternal victory dead center. Catherine had 1 second to feel terror. 1 second to understand that everything he believed was wrong. 1 second to realize that the humans had been waiting for this moment for decades. Then his ship began to crush. The weapon was not a laser. It was not plasma. It was gravity itself, focused into a killing blow. The eternal victory did not explode. It compressed. Metal screamed as the massive flagship was squeezed like paper in a fist. In 3 seconds, A kilometer-long warship became a sphere the size of a small shuttle. Every life aboard was gone. Across the Volanti fleet, sensors recorded what happened. Officers watched their invincible flagship die in an instant. Fear-real, primal fear spread through their ranks. The Prometheus spoke again. "That was one shot," Admiral Tanaka said. 13 hours and 58 minutes remain. Chaos erupted in the Volanti fleet. Captains who had never known defeat screamed for orders. Some ships began retreating without permission. Others fired blindly at the Prometheus, accomplishing nothing. And through it all, the human dreadnought kept coming, slow, patient, inevitable. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Tanaka watched the enemy formation collapse. She felt no joy. She felt no triumph. She only felt tired. Too many had died to reach this moment. Too many names would never be spoken again, but humanity would survive. Whatever it took, whatever price was paid, humanity would survive. "All ships," she said quietly, "follow the Prometheus. It is time to finish this." From behind the moon, the remnant of Earth's fleet emerged to join the hunt. And in the darkness of space, the Volanti learned what it meant to be prey. The Ninth Annihilation Fleet was dying. For 300 years, the Volanti had brought death to others. Now death had come for them, and they did not know how to face it. Ships fled in every direction. Some tried to jump to faster-than-light travel, but the Prometheus was doing something to local space. It was bending gravity, disrupting their engines. They were trapped in the Sol system with a monster they could not hurt and could not escape. The Prometheus moved through their formation like a wolf through sheep. It did not fire constantly. It did not need to. One shot here, one shot there. Each time, a Volanti warship died instantly. Each time, the survivors grew more terrified. But the Prometheus was not alone. From the outer system, 32 new human ships arrived. They were smaller than the Great Dreadnought, but they were fast and deadly. They carried weapons that cut through Volanti shields like they were made of paper. They moved in perfect coordination, as if a single mind controlled them all. And behind them came the survivors. The 47 battered ships that had defended Earth for 11 days. They were damaged. They were exhausted. But they were not finished. Admiral Tanaka commanded the battle from the Defiance. Her voice was calm and steady over the communications network. Predator Squadron, block the retreat path to Jupiter. Destroyer Group 3, push them toward the Prometheus. All other ships, protect civilian evacuation routes. No Volanti vessel gets near Earth. Our orders were obeyed without question. The human fleet moved like a single organism, cutting off escape routes and herding the panicking enemy toward their doomed captain. Viren of the Volanti cruiser Silent Wrath tried to rally his fellow commanders. He gathered 50 ships and led a desperate charge toward the Prometheus. If they could destroy it, maybe, just maybe they could survive. The Prometheus fired twice. The first shot killed the Silent Wrath. The second killed the ship beside it. The remaining 48 vessels scattered in terror. Viren died not understanding how everything had gone so wrong. Across the battlefield, the story repeated again and again. Every time the Volanti tried to organize, the humans broke them apart. Every time they tried to run, they found human ships blocking their path. The hunters had become the hunted, and they had no idea how to survive it. Hour after hour, the battle continued. The Volanti numbers dropped steadily. 2,000 became 1,500. 1,500 became 1,000. 1,000 became 600. Admiral Tanaka offered surrender 3 times. The first time, the highest-ranking surviving Volanti commander refused. He called her a savage and swore to kill every human in the galaxy. The Prometheus destroyed his ship. The second time, the new commander hesitated. He asked for terms. Leave this system. Tanaka replied. Never return. That is the only term. He refused. He still believed reinforcements might come. He still believed the Dominion was too powerful to lose. He was wrong on both counts. By hour 11, 400 Volanthi ships remained. They were huddled together near Neptune, surrounded on all sides. Their weapons were running low. Their crews were exhausted and terrified. Many had stopped fighting entirely. The third surrender offer came at hour 12. This time, every surviving captain accepted. The Prometheus went dark. Its weapons powered down. Its terrible glow faded until it was just a shadow against the stars. The human fleet held position, weapons ready but not firing. Admiral Tanaka appeared on the view screens of every Volanthi ship. Her face was tired but stern. You came to our home to enslave us, she said. You killed millions of our people. You burned our colonies. You showed us no mercy. The Volanthi captains waited for the killing blow. They expected it. They had done the same to countless other species, but Tanaka's next words surprised them. We will show you mercy anyway. Not because you deserve it. Not because we are weak. Because we choose to be better than you. She paused, letting the words sink in. You will leave now. You will return to your dominion, and you will tell them what you saw here today. A Volanthi captain dared to speak. And if we do not leave? If we fight? Tanaka's expression did not change. Then we will kill all of you. And then we will come for your homeworld. And we will burn it the way you burn Mars. The captain went silent. But we do not want that, Tanaka continued. We are not monsters. We are not conquerors. We want only to live in peace. But we will never be victims again. Do you understand? 400 Volanthi ships powered up their engines. They turned away from the human fleet and began the long journey home. They moved slowly, their drives damaged, their spirits broken. But they moved. The battle was over. On Earth, 4 billion people watched the Volanthi retreat. They saw the Prometheus floating silently in the darkness, its work complete. They saw the battered remnants of their fleet, victorious against impossible odds, and they wept. They wept for the dead. They wept for Mars and Europa and all the others who would never come back. They wept for the fear and the pain and the long, terrible days of waiting to die. But they also wept with joy, because they were alive, because humanity had faced extinction and survived, because somewhere in the darkness, their children would have a future after all. Admiral Tanaka watched the last Volanthi ship disappear into the void. Then she sat down in her command chair and closed her eyes. It's over, she whispered. Finally over. But she knew, deep in her heart, that it was also just beginning. 1 year later, Ambassador Chan Wei-lin returned to the Concord Assembly. The last time she had stood here, the Volanthi representative had laughed at her. The other species had watched with mild curiosity, interested in her suffering, but unwilling to help. She had begged for 14 days and received them like charity. Today was different. She walked into the great chamber with her head held high. Human guards walked beside her, the first time any species had been allowed to bring armed escorts to the assembly. The 12 species present watched her in silence. There was no laughter now. There was only fear. And respect. Chun took her place at the speaking platform. Around her, the representatives of a dozen civilizations waited to hear what humanity would say. In the years since the Battle of Seoul, everything had changed. The Volanthi Dominion had collapsed within 6 months. The 400 ships that returned home had carried more than survivors. They carried stories. Stories of a human weapon that drank fire and spat death. Stories of a species that had pretended to be weak while building nightmares in secret. Stories of mercy granted to those who deserved none. Those stories spread through the Dominion like poison. The slave species that the Volanthi had controlled for centuries heard them and began to hope. They rose up. They fought back. They remembered that their masters were not gods after all. The dominion shattered. In its place, a dozen new nations were born. Many of them sent messages to Earth, asking for protection, asking for friendship. Humanity said yes to all of them. The Concord Assembly had watched this happen with growing unease. They had analyzed every piece of information from the Battle of Sol. They had studied the Prometheus and the human fleet. They had run countless simulations. Their conclusion was terrifying. Humanity had been holding back. The Prometheus was not their only weapon. The Predator-class destroyers were not their full strength. For 80 years, perhaps longer, humans had been preparing for a war they hoped would never come. They had built things in secret that broke every rule the galaxy had ever written, and they had never told anyone. Now the Assembly had to decide how to deal with this new reality. They could try to contain humanity. They could form alliances against them. They could attempt to destroy them before they grew even stronger. But they all knew the truth. It was too late for any of that. Ambassador Chun, the Assembly speaker said, the Concord recognizes Earth's application for full membership. We are prepared to offer humanity a seat at the high table. This was significant. Only the oldest, most powerful species sat at the high table. They made the decisions that shaped the galaxy. No young species had ever been invited. But humanity was not young anymore. Not really. Chun smiled softly. Thank you. Humanity accepts. She paused, looking around the chamber. Alien eyes and sensors and minds watched her every movement. They were waiting to see what humanity would do with its new power. We did not build the Prometheus because we wanted war, she said. We built it because we understood something your species forgot long ago. She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. The universe is not kind. It does not reward the weak. It does not protect the innocent. Those who cannot defend themselves will be conquered by those who can. This is not a moral truth. It is simply reality. The chamber was utterly silent. For 200 years, we watched your species make war. We watched empires rise and fall. We watched the Volanthi enslave world after world while this assembly did nothing. And we learned. She looked at each representative in turn. We learned that no one would save us. We learned that we had to save ourselves. So we built our weapons in secret. We trained our soldiers in secret. We prepared for the day when someone would try to destroy us. And when that day came, we were ready. Chun let the words hang in the air. Humanity will be your friend, she said. Your partner. Perhaps even your family. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will trade and talk and build alongside you. Her expression hardened. But we will never again be victims. The Prometheus sleeps in the darkness between stars. It will sleep as long as peace lasts. But if anyone threatens us, if anyone threatens those under our protection, they will learn what we truly are. The assembly speaker leaned forward. And what are you, truly? Chun smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a species that had crawled out of caves and learned to split atoms and touch the stars. A smile that carried 10,000 years of struggle and survival. We are the children of Earth, she said. A small pale blue dot at the edge of nowhere. We were not born strong. We were not chosen by destiny. We fought for every single thing we have. She looked up as if she could see through the ceiling to the stars beyond. We are not the smartest species. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced. But we are the most stubborn. We refuse to die. We refuse to kneel. We refuse to accept that the universe is too dangerous for us to survive. She turned back to the assembly, her eyes burning with quiet fire. And now, The galaxy knows our name. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, one by one, the representatives began to signal their agreement, their respect, their acceptance. Humanity had earned its place among the stars far away. In the cold darkness beyond Pluto, the Prometheus drifted silently. Its weapons were cold. Its crew was at rest. But its engines were warm, ready to wake at a moment's notice. It would sleep for now. But it would never sleep forever. And the galaxy would never forget.